And this is gonna I don't know why I'm even saying this. This is crazy. When did we start sitting to poop? Because it's much healthier to squat with your knees to your chest. Yeah. When did that happen?
I think it was a money thing. I think they were like, we're going to invent this seat, and it's going to be. We're like, we're going to have a bit like. But actually, they didn't realize that it was the harder way to poop, and it's probably not been great for colons for centuries.
Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And I'm with some heavy-hitting channels right now. Derek from Myth Vision Podcast, Johanna James, Funny Old World, and History with Kaylee.
Hi.
All of you are towering over me in subscribers, but it's all good. It's all good. We're going to talk about...
So far.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about how old is civilization? So I was looking at this the other day. The Sumerians, right? What do they come around like 4,000 BC, 3,500 BC, somewhere in between there, whatever. Maybe even before that, some people say. But by the time we get to that period of time, we have a base 60 mass system, a 12-month calendar, 7-day week, a writing system, cuneiform, a postal system, mythology, arts, industries of bricklaying, metallurgy, government, military, trading systems, roads, astronomy, star mapping, agriculture, farming, the wheel, and musical instruments. And they didn't all just come out of nowhere. Like, they didn't just pop up in thin air overnight. So obviously,
probably McDonald's as well.
McDonald's, yeah, they had some sort of fast food. But I bring that up is because, like, there's no way you're going to tell me that overnight they just decided to, invent all these things within one century or something like that. I think this happened slowly over time, and the question is when. When does the wheel come about? When does fire come about? When do humanoids become humans? It goes back farther. It goes back way farther. And I think Göbekli Tepe is a huge deal too, because this is pointing to a system of people who are, if there's a temple somewhere, there's obviously a society. Hunter and gatherers aren't just going to build a temple, put all their eggs into a temple and start focusing all their resources on building temples and pillars. That just doesn't happen. You don't have time for that. If you're
purposely bury it. I mean,
right.
Oh, hold on. Let's go catch. No, we don't have to survive. Don't worry about killing more cattle or killing more deer. Let's bury this for the next few years. How about that? Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot.
Yeah, and there's, not just Göbekli Tepe, there's even older ones as well that's been found. Karen Tepe, and there's can't remember the name, but other tepes. That every time they do an excavation, they go, oh, this is 1,000 years older. This is 1,000 years older. So, yeah, it's like, I think many more of these sites are going to pop up in the next 20, 30 years, that we're going to be able to get a real picture of oh no, I mean, humans were actually building these sites. Is it Karen Tepe? One of them they have not just a temple, they had homes, they had, they showed, it was super advanced, basically, more than just one temple structure. Yeah. It was a whole, basically a little town, because they had buildings. They had the first window ever found, which is cool. I think it was a circular window found, I think, in Karen Tepe. And yeah, they're going to start proving that people, that the kind of story that we were told when we were at school wasn't correct at all, and humans are way more intelligent and a lot older than we think. Just because we've found writing and settlements from 6,000 BC doesn't mean that there couldn't have been ones before.
I think it's the same as the fossil record, the archaeological sites. The fossil record that we currently have, we know is incomplete, and even the archaeologists, anthropologists, they all know that it's incomplete. But when we go by the fossil record and we look at species when they emerged and when we found them last, that's the record that we have. But we do know that they must have lived before, and they probably lived until after, because we only found the fossils within this time frame. It's the same with the archaeological discoveries of the places of the Tastepeller sites in Turkey. They currently have 12 sites. And that's the record that we have. Right. We know that it existed in between that time frame.
Yeah.
We know that currently there are 12. but there probably are more, and some are older and some are younger. I think it's the same as like the fossil record.
Wow.
And where's the prototypes as well? Like, I'd love to see the prototypes of all the carvings at Göbekli Tepe. Like, surely there should be a rock somewhere with some like really dodgy looking animal, and then someone was like, nah, that was Bill's first attempt and it was really bad. And like, but we just find like these amazing finished products, and it's like we can't work out it. There must be in this expansive prototype version of events, because we only find the beginning. Oh, well, we only find like the finished product.
Yeah.
It's like finding the Apple Pro 13 and not finding any of the ones before and being like, how did they do this? Well, they must have had some sort of practice.
Yeah, like you don't just get a video camera without having like an older type of camera before that, or like some
Exactly.
sort of system that takes still images. You know what I mean?
Which is the problem that you get with a lot of the earliest civilizations that we find, is that the progress goes backwards. So the very first dynasties of ancient Egypt were the most precise. They were the most. They built the biggest structures. You could move bigger stone. The older the civilization, and as civilizations progress and get younger, their skills get really they go down. It's like the opposite to like linear progress that we find in ancient civilization. It's really weird. So they start off like coming out of the bat, like straight out the bat, and they're brilliant, and it's a bit weird. You're like,
Yeah, you see some of the newer pyramids, and they're like all raggedy and tiny, and
yeah, all of the the new pyramids in Egypt, they're like mud brick, and they're all like disintegrating.
right.
It's really weird. It's like they lost the skill of it.
Maybe the dream by Pharaoh was true in the Bible, where the fat cows would swallow the skinny ones, and the skinny would. So there's like this deterioration happening. I'm teasing, but there is something interesting about what you're saying. When I talked to Dr. Joshua Bowen, who's a Sumerian archaeological, scholar with Assyriology and all that kind of stuff, he pointed out how writing developed in the Sumerian context. Was they started out with clay balls. It was clay tablets. Like they have all these clay tablets with all the writings on them. But before writing, they had like, if you wanted to give 10 sheep to your neighbor down the road, and he has to travel 50 miles, he won't be back for a few days, you want to make sure he doesn't steal any of them. So you send him with a contract ball made of clay with, like, on the ball, they would put like certain marks that would represent sheep. So they knew when they got there, okay, I'm selling you 10 sheep. I need the money for these 10 sheep. Eventually, they put them inside the ball so that the owner who's buying them has to break the ball open so that they couldn't like mess with the clay. I mean, it hardened, but sometimes they would try to find ways, like any thief will try to find a slick way to get around it. But there wasn't writing. It was like they were giving this. But does that mean that there wasn't some form of communication before language, as we call it, was on the scene, and we haven't found it yet? Or it's something out there? I mean, were the Sumerians, this is my real question, right? And it's a mystery. Were they the real first people to come up with what we call writing? That doesn't mean we weren't sophisticated. I mean, look at all the massive objects you guys are talking about. Like, what? How did we do this? How did we know to do this? We weren't
like
stupid
logistically. Yeah.
Right.
Like, how would people would have to have some sort of wage pay, or even if it wasn't money, they would have to have been paid in resources, food. How do you source the food? How do you make sure that people have, like, just the logistics of that kind? Like, look at a festival, like setting up Fire Festival. All right, look how like disastrous that was. Can you imagine, like, who was the production planning team for Göbekli Tepe and Karen Tepe and all of that? Logistics, you'd have to have a way. You can't have someone just taking a food order for 9,000 men without writing something down. It would, maybe the reason that we don't have records of writing before a certain period of time is because we've only found the stuff that's in stone or clay. But if they wrote on anything else, paper or leaves or anything else that's just gone poof into history, we haven't found it. So, I mean, my other option, I'm split with my theories. I'm going to go a bit wild here, but the theory of, when we look at all the oldest stuff that's found in around the world, Egypt and wherever, all of the really old builder type stuff is completely minimal. It's completely clear. There's no symbology on it. There's no writing. There's no inscription. It's like super precise work. which makes me think that maybe they didn't have writing. So again, you're like, okay, well, what if you didn't have writing? If there's no symbols, did they communicate in another way? Was there another way to, because writing is to convey information. So I'm going on, what if there was a society or a way of life for humans where they had other communication skills that was not writing? If we had better memory, better ways to telepathically send messages and recordings, or like just thinking a little bit outside the box, because I'm kind of leaning to maybe 100,000 years ago humans had slightly different skills to us, or there were hominids that exist that we don't know how they look really freaking weird, and they've got really weird heads and they've got craniums, and like maybe they just had a different way, and that's why all the old stuff isn't covered in writings and inscriptions and pictures, because they didn't think like that, or they didn't function like that. It was all
different strengths.
Yeah, like and like today you get those sort of weird amazing freak people that have picture memories, and they can memorize like pages and pages and pages of stuff, or they can remember like number, like I can remember like basically my phone number and that's it. But some people can just remember number plates.
This guy that did one helicopter flight above New York, and then from memory drew the entire city skyline of New York.
Things like that.
Once
I went to high school with somebody who he was a special needs person, but he would come to school every day, and you'd ask him the score of a game, any game, hockey game, baseball game. But he knew the exact score. He knew who scored. He knew who had the most assists. He knew all the stats. He remembered it by heart. He knew how to remember numbers perfectly. But he had problems in other areas. Like he was a slow talker. But this kid was a genius.
So isn't this something, Johanna, you would be able to comment on this, and maybe both of you would actually. You mentioned Neanderthals, right? While we thought they were so dumb and whatnot, they may have been maybe it's a horrible term to use this way, but autistic in some sense, that they were very, very intelligent in certain ways, and kind of like we thought they were dumb because they weren't in other ways advanced, but they were very advanced in very focal points. That's something you've mentioned, but I wanted to share, if I could, just this image right here. This book is a must read. It's a Dr. John Knight Lundwall, and Mythos and Cosmos, Mind and Meaning in the Oral Age. So this gets to the heart of like one of the issues. You could stop sharing now. I just wanted to show it. John Knight Lundwall points out that like people before writing, you were just describing it, we're way more advanced. It's like today asking your average Joe down the street, hey, so by the way, did you notice last night at the Pleiades that the Big Dipper was touching? What do you mean? No, I was watching Seinfeld on TV and I was writing a novel to my friend. Or no, you weren't watching the heavens. You weren't observing the stars. You weren't paying attention to the natural world the way they did in those days. So he had this really interesting hypothesis he brought out, and he said, before we had writing, we worked with the same hardware we've had for hundreds of thousands of years, but the software was different. We did not compartmentalize things the way we do now. Now we know how to separate ideas. Okay, when Venus comes up, it's not really what causes the green grass and the trees and the birds and the bees and nature and all the green to come back. They used to believe and connect dots in ways we don't. They looked at Venus and they called it the bright morning star that brought life, the life bringer. Why? Every year at a certain time, if you observe the heavens, you'll notice this star comes up. And next thing you know, there's birds and bees and there's plants growing and flowers and life is coming. Fertility is happening. That God must have brought the power of life. So they connected things without compartmentalizing and going, oh, Venus is a planet. It's part of the same solar system. It's just part of our sun, and the sun gravitationally keeping it within, yada, yada, yada. So he said when we got to writing, that did a lot of good in some ways, but also made us a little more disconnected from what we've been used to doing for hundreds of thousands of years.
In the same way that we've had another jump now. So writing was one thing thousands of years ago, and now we've had like digital technology, which is again shifting our paradigm again, and we're now losing skills. I can't tell where to go. I have no sense of direction, no orienteering skills, because rely entirely on digital technology. Like even just driving, I'm so bad at directions. I'm like, yeah, or like we get like my handwriting. Have you physically written something down? Sometimes I go a long time and then I write it and I'm like, oh, like what is this writing? This is rubbish. So I think in some ways we're like gaining skills, but then also we're like seriously losing them.
But I think that's what most people forget in the entire evolution of being a human and all the hominids and hominins that lived before us. When we acquire a new skill, we lose another. You can't keep acquiring skills because we only use 10% of the brain.
Right.
I mean, I can do this. This is my 10%. If you put more into this, I will have to put out other stuff because it doesn't fit otherwise. I'm unable to acquire certain skills otherwise. So in order to grow and keep evolving as a species, we will keep losing other senses. So like I one of the ways that, or like one of the very first conversations that you and I had on Instagram in the DMs was me saying that with my ex, while he was asleep, I would put my hand next to his face while he was very deep asleep, like REM sleep. He was gone, he was out of it. And he doesn't wake up from sounds or whatever. But when I would put my hand next to his face, he would wake up.
Yeah,
because that's such an ancient response of like your safety, your aura, your space was invaded. So like back in the day when we had to survive outside and we didn't have any homes, having something invade your space, and I think back then your space would have been a lot larger than it currently is because we're very safe nowadays. But when something invades your space, you automatically wake up because you have to like keep yourself safe. So he would usually wake up when I tried that, and he would be very pissed and like, "Woman, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yo, I was just trying to."
I'm doing this experiment, dude.
Senses like that you lose over time. It seems like not everyone has it.
That's like a little. I think if we actually tracked and traced all these little weird little remnants, and we think they're really normal, or we just think that that person's special. He can remember like multiple numbers, and we're like, actually, this is just like echoes of old skills that we have, and that is some old brain thing that like your phone is always recording, ready for you to record. I think in the same way our brain is always, even though when we're in a deep sleep, there is some part of our brain that's still running just in case someone's like gonna get you.
There's one interesting thing about this that I did not know that makes a lot of sense with the idea of our evolutionary protection and survival is all built into this, but I didn't know this till someone who was talking about the philosophy of evolution and how we as humans have evolved. They said, you ever go to sleep and you feel like you're falling off the edge of a cliff and you jerk, you take a breath. They said, and this is their words, not mine, that is actually a remnant in our evolution when we once lived in the canopy of trees 5 million years ago. And we survived hanging on to the tree. And once in a while, we'd slip up and fall out of the tree. And so there's a mechanism in us to protect ourselves, to wake up, to grab, to try and jerk, to hold on before you fall. The other point they brought up was, notice as a child, you always think there's a monster under the bed. Because when we lived in the canopy of the trees for millions of years, all of our enemies and monsters that wanted to eat us were underneath us always. So subconsciously, it has been ingrained into our DNA. It has been part of our genetic development to survive. And I want to read one thing, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, I'm hogging up. I just want to mention, this is so interesting.
Yeah, sure.
This is John Knight Lunwall's like title for the book. A bold new approach. And I know Johanna loves the bold new approaches because she's always like, I think science is going to start changing. The paradigm shift is going to happen. A bold new approach to myth studies. Mythos and Cosmos re-examines ancient myth through the template of oral thinking and oral cosmology, contradicting decades of assumptions about the purpose and function of ancient mythology. Lundwall defines myth as the oral imprinting press of pre-literate peoples, and shows that myth belongs to a complex and rational method of information transmission amongst oral peoples. Further, ancient mythology belonged to occultists which incorporated ritual and symbol in a cosmological system which sought to found the sacred world. He not only does this in like ancient Hebraic studies and all the mythologies of like the Enuma Elish and Epic of Gilgamesh and Sumerian and Egyptian, you name it. He also works in America. So he's actually looking at the Native American carvings in Nevada and in Salt Lake City, and he's seeing how they also mapped out the stars and how that connected to their everyday lives and stuff. So I got to connect you guys, like for real. Everybody here's got to talk to him.
Book for sure, because I think I had a hunch, but I feel like that might be onto something. That the ancient humans, you just had a different tech, like, and we have little speckles of it today, and we're like, oh, what's weird that you text me? I was just thinking about you. Oh, weird. And then it's like, no, we're actually, that was something that was very common. You could probably send people messages, thoughts, feelings, dreams. Actually, I had a friend and I totally believed them. They were a couple who they met in their dream. They had a dream where they described, and they both described the exact same dream, and they just saw it from the other point of view of each other, and it was very weird. And yeah, this couple could meet in their dreams, and I was like, oh, yeah, really, okay, whatever. But now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I mean, I guess it's not that. It's just kind of consciousness and subconsciousness, and maybe we still don't know a lot about dreams. Like most scientists are like, we don't know why we dream. It's something that we all do and we all experience, and we know it's something to the brain processing something, and it's how we function, but we don't really know why.
The weirdest thing is that when you dream, the 10% of the brain that you use while you're awake is shut down.
Right.
Because you don't use that part of, because you're unconscious. Your subconscious is only 10% of your brain. But when you sleep, you're unconscious. So the 10% that you normally use is just shut down. It's offline.
I think the only times. Oh, sorry.
I said it's like sorting everything out and like.
Yeah, it's filing stuff, but it's weird.
When I was young, I was really good at like remembering things, but if I had like a bad night's sleep, I couldn't remember anything. Yeah. Like it was just complete mush inside my brain. So even as an adult, if I don't sleep at least 6.5 hours, I'm just completely effed. So the past couple of nights I slept 4.5 hours, which was fun. Wow. So like my brain was completely fried at a wedding, tipsy and everything. But like I can feel in my brain that first of all, you didn't have your normal sleep. Second of all, you've had alcohol. Third of all, we didn't get to like put everything in storage where it should be normally. Yeah. And I completely function on a different level.
They said
it's just survival.
They did a test between drunk people and new mums who aren't getting a lot of sleep, and they tested them on car simulators, and they found that new mums were more dangerous than drunk people driving because of lack of sleep, because your reaction speed is crap, and you're like you can't assess risks, and you just simply don't see stuff, you zone out. Like it's super dangerous. So I can't function on no sleep. I need a lot of sleep as well. I think it's quite magic, anybody that can just not. I think we need it for a reason. We actually spend half our entire life just lying down, so like not conscious. It's quite weird. I'm like, is that a design flaw? Like 50% of our time is like.
I don't think it's a design flaw. I think just like look at your laptop or your phone. It can do so much. It's such a small device, and it can do so much. But if you don't charge it, it's not going to do anything.
Right.
And we're the same. We need to be charged. So you need to have energy to put out energy, I think.
Maybe that's why ancient people had spas. Like they were onto that.
Right.
Yeah.
They were like, you got to recharge and all zen. Get all your chakras in order.
Right. You know what else I was thinking about is we think we're so advanced, we know so much, we're so much smarter than people from the ancient world. But if you took us right now and threw us back in time 5,000 years and had us try to survive with the people living back then, we would be completely lost. We would be the lowest of the low in that society.
That's a movie that I really want to see.
95% of the people going back died within the first week.
Like, we would not be able to survive.
They couldn't find water.
I think about that. I think if there is another cataclysm like the one that happened 10,000 years ago. Yes. If there was another cataclysm, how long would I last? Absolutely. I think I'd last 24 hours. I don't know where to get fresh water that doesn't come out of a tap. I don't know what's safe to eat, what bugs I can eat, I don't know anything about survival.
How to hunt something?
I don't know how to hunt anything. I'm a vegetarian. I find that very morally hard. I'm not built for the ancient life.
I mean, I can build a fire just using wood, but like it takes
you're more advanced than most people. You're better off than most people are just by that. Most
but like
can't do that.
Even if I were to hunt and like I killed something, then you need to still prepare it. And it's like no, nasty.
Do you think you could hunt and kill something?
They're American.
Without weapons, I mean,
like with your bare hand, could you snap an animal's neck with your bare hand?
Try. I don't know. I doubt it.
I think when you're hungry enough, yeah, I do. I mean, this gets into why I think religion came to be. Like all of this. Religion's not just order. It brings order. I mean, every myth, if you look at all the myths, Genesis, the Enuma Elish, the Greek myths that I heard earlier today when I interviewed Demos, they all start off with this thing they call chaos. And they don't mean chaos in like what we think, oh, everything's just crap. But no, it's not a derogatory thing. It's disorder. There's no organization to anything, but the God brings order. And if you look at it as a concept rather than an ontology where you have to believe there's really a guy behind the cloud sitting with a thunderbolt in his hand, or Jesus is hiding behind a cloud watching you, whatever you're watching on the internet, but some kid in Africa starving. No. If you look at it as a concept of fire, how does fire begin? Where do these ideas in water, survival, and all of these aspects, you can see how they would organize. And over a very long period of time, you would think these entities had almost an essence to themselves. That's why I love doing the religious stuff, because I think it's a key, like ancient mythologies and religions. Oh, you want to kiss me? Okay, dude. Okay. But yeah, no, I think it's like a key in understanding our evolutionary process.
Yeah.
Whereas today, I have an opinion on this. I think people are holding on to something that may not be necessary. We can create new models for. I still believe in myth. I love Iron Man. I love creating stories that tell us the most amazing things about us as humans, but they're all made in our image. You know, instead of pretending we're made in theirs, I think that we've made them in ours. And I think that we've advanced to that point. So I think it's part of that whole, when did fire come on the scene? When did we learn how to roll the wheel? All of that stuff probably plays a role in that significance. So
imagine the guys and girls that invented fire. Like, what was going on?
So
like, dude,
Homo erectus was like the first human that like controlled fire for sure, that we know of. And we found evidence of like fire being used between 1.4 and 1.9 million years ago.
Wow.
Being controlled. So
they had to have magical powers.
Of fire before, like 2.4 million years ago, 2.8 million years ago. There are some remnants of fire. It's just that we cannot confirm nor deny that those fires were being controlled or being taken advantage of because they started naturally. We don't know that. But when we look at like this human evolutionary timeline from when we, as the Homo genus started, we started when the Australopithecines evolved, and we started with Homo habilis. And then there are some anthropologists that say that, you know, Homo habilis should actually be an Australopithecine because they were.
I don't know what any of these. I'm just like,
they were like the very, very, very first in the Homo genus. They were the first humans,
like the granddaddy of all granddaddies. Okay.
Yes. So, but then, like, I just made this video. It's not yet up. It's gonna be up tomorrow. But I looked into like the oldest stone tools. They predate humans. They predate all humans. The oldest stone tools that we've discovered are like 3.3 million years old.
Wow.
And they were being created by an Australopithecus genus.
Right. So the pre-humans.
Pre-human.
Yeah, so
hominin, but not human.
Mm.
And that to me is insane. Like the Stone Age started before humans even existed. We used to think that the Stone Age started with humans.
Us. Yeah.
but Homo sapiens inherited these tools.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
And we just progressed it. We just went a little further than our parents.
right.
Yeah.
You know,
You
and
know
their
what else
parents.
you know what else I thought was pretty interesting? Since your dog's on the screen, I thought of Gutsick Gibbon made a video about how dogs actually affected the human evolution timeline, and not only did they help us evolve, we changed their evolutionary path too.
Yeah.
So dogs and humans have like an intertwined evolutionary path.
Hear that?
I think she says something about, and this is not just her, like she's relying on the field of all the scholars out there that talk about this, something about us and our hand-eye coordination that made us go beyond the other species that went extinct. And having dogs with their keen sense and their capabilities that we don't have, being the best friend of man, like helped us hone in on those skills, which made us just go even further. And I don't know how long ago, I couldn't put dates on it, maybe you know, how long ago man has used dogs or wolves really that end up becoming domesticated because that's where they come from.
I'm seeing 40 million years ago from a quick Google search. I mean,
4 million?
40 million.
40 million. We've been having pets for 40 million years.
So that means that way before even the Australopithecus.
Right. That's
some monkey form of us is like hanging out with dogs, literally.
Love it.
And it says that there's still a scholarly debate going on right now as of whether we found them or they found us. So
I think he's saying that
I found you, punk.
But can you imagine that being like a humanoid, and dogs are like coming up to you, being friendly, like, hey, let's, like, you just sort of sense it. You know what I mean? Like, and other animals do that too. There's actually examples of other animals in the wild who get together and have friendly relationships and live together, and they're not
really,
like different birds and stuff like that.
Imagine if it had evolved the other way, and so a monkey and a dog became friends, and eventually now we've got pet dogs. But what if it went the other way, and the dogs were in charge, and we just had the pet humans?
No, but
you're making me think of.
I'm his pet.
That's
what is that? What is that movie?
Family Guy did that.
What's that movie with the Planet of the Apes? You know how the apes are ruling the humans and stuff. It's like, whoa, hold on, what?
I mean, maybe in some parallel dimension. Just going back, I literally just read in a book yesterday about the origin of the oral tradition of the origin of religion in Egypt and how the priesthood even started. So, like, how did we get to a place where there was this hierarchy of, because originally in Kemet, in Egypt, before Egypt was Egypt, there wasn't, everybody was equal. There was nobody having any kind of gatekeeping or access. Everybody was taught the same thing, and everybody, there's something like, in the oral tradition, they said there's like 360, which is interesting because of the 360 degrees of everything. There's 360 netters, which means like it translates to like energies or powers. So humans have access, like we have it. Well, the old humans had access to use these energies, these powers. And interesting, the translation for a pyramid, the pyramid is a Greek translation. The original word is per netta, which means house of energy. So they had a thing that humans could have all these like 360 of like access to energies that basically all of existence, all matter, all conscience is connected. And that's what they thought. And so you could access these things, you could heal yourself, you could, I mean, I don't know, maybe get to some sort of psychological plane of whatever.
That healing yourself, it's like what cats do. When cats are hurt or they don't feel good, they start purring. Yeah. And the frequency of the purr can actually heal like broken bones and stuff.
Well, there we are. And humans had an element of that as well. They could work with frequencies and they could connect to these like chakras and stuff. But what happened was when people were getting populated, the priesthood, people started to basically not follow. They weren't as interested to do that whole process of getting connected with the universe and getting connected to the earth and the energies, and that kind of fell out of fashion, and people got more into, I don't know, whatever other hobbies they had. And only so then just a select number of men and women, the priest and priestesses, they were the ones that did like the old way, and they were the ones that could still connect. And it basically became the original Holy of Holies were located at specific points in the temples, which were built on very specific ley lines of energies. So people would come to the temple to connect to the, all of the netters.
I had a scholar on Grabby. That's how you say his name, Grabby, Derek? Dr.
Grady.
And he was saying exactly what you said. He said that the Jerusalem temple, the way the structure is laid out, is based off older Egyptian temples of like Heliopolis and Luxor, and they have the same layout. Like it's like a square with a square in the middle, the Holy of Holies. He said that's an ancient. That's an ancient temples.
The sites are specifically built where they are because of the energies of where they are. They're like hotspots for energies, and so the Holy of Holies. So they basically, this priesthood started gatekeeping, because they were the only ones after a few generations that could remember how to meditate to get to that place, how to access the netters. And they started becoming, so normal people were then outside the walls of these sanctuaries, whereas before, thousands of years before, anybody could walk in anywhere, and it was like everybody was kind of equal. And then so started this kind of basically religion, where you would have people saying, well, if you want this, if you want to get inner peace, if you want to touch the gods, if you want to be connected to the universe, you have to go through me, because I'm the only one that knows how to access or how to like ignite this Holy of Holies.
It seems like there was a time where we developed ego.
Yeah, there was like a disconnect happened.
When people, well, I mean, we have extremely rich people, and we have the majority of the world, which is like either normal or poor. But it's the ego that made them eventually the 1%. Extremely rich.
Yeah.
And the normal and the poor people, like, to be completely honest, I grew up extremely poor. And I've never met more generous people than my immediate family, who was extremely poor, because we knew how hard it was. So we always gave away. And then you had like the rich people in my family, because I had rich people in my family, and they never gave anything to anyone, not even for a birthday. They didn't even do birthday presents.
Oh, wow.
They were that kind of like, no, that's their money, like you have more than enough, and you don't even want to give a little bit, while someone who has absolutely nothing gives everything they have.
And that's the story there as well in all the ancient texts. It seems to be in quite a lot of places, that story of like the corruption of mankind meant they turned away. Once we were at one with nature. I mean, it's kind of said in different ways in different texts and in different cultures, but it's kind of telling the same story again and again.
We developed ego.
We were in connection with conscience and everything, and then we kind of fell out of it. Some people still could, therefore they monetized that at some point. And they became, there's like a hierarchy evolved, where really there shouldn't be a hierarchy. Like if you're a citizen of the earth, if you're a human being on earth, you should be able to access all the energies, all of the benefits, all the nutrients.
Just like all those the henge monuments here in the UK, the United Kingdom. We have Stones of Stonehenge. It's a henge monument. Who built it? Well, we think we know that there were Neolithic farmers or whatever, but why and for who? And then people think, but they built it probably for like a druid or a priest or whatever. No, they built it together because that was an important area for them, and they wanted something to make it even more monumental. And then you have the immediate area. The pyramids of Giza are like the stars of Orion.
Yep. Orion's belt.
But what people don't know is that the Ring of Buchan, the Ring of Brodgar, and the Stones of Stonehenge are in the same fashion. They're in the belt of Orion. No one knows this, and this predates the pyramids by 3,000 years.
This gets back to that whole orality thing that I was saying, like they're connecting heaven and earth. We know on earth as it is in heaven, Jesus prayed, but also that idea of as above, so below, ancient concept. There's one thing I wanted to mention, like take a airplane ride with me, a satellite view of the whole picture. I love the way you're painting this, because it's making me think big picture. The ancients were, they ran with a caste system. What made that development begin? Like, why is it there's a hierarchy and only the elites at the top know the secrets and the wisdom and all the truth? What's before that? And I think that's what Johanna's trying to reach back to.
Yeah.
But what gets me is over time, and developments happen throughout the different various religions, Greco-Roman, then you get into the New Testament, these mysteries that only the elite are allowed to know. Why? Because knowledge is power, wisdom is power, and they recognize probably absolute power corrupts absolutely because it's common sense. So if you give people these insights and they're not prepared, they have a corrupt or evil sense about them in their view, they're probably thinking, these people are going to do damage. We need initiates who can go through all the processes and be prepared to handle the knowledge we're going to give and use it for good rather than for evil. So I think that development happened. And you brought up the whole 360 energies, however you want to interpret it. I'm not an expert. I don't know what this really means, but I see something here. And I brought an image up. Can you share this image real quick, Neil?
Go for it.
This right here is a man named Honi, a Jewish, very charismatic preacher in the 1st century at the same time around when Jesus was on the scene. They called him the circle drawer because the power was in this 360 circle that he would draw on the ground. And he had a following. I don't even know what he taught. I haven't even dug into Honi yet, but I know some of the academics I talked to say this is their favorite figure around this time period. He would draw circles. I don't know what he taught about it, but that 360, and there's this concept.
Yeah.
Who knows?
The 360, and then when you look at the like the 360, you're talking about like literally the Earth, 360 degrees of the Earth, and it's weird that there's 360 energies. One of them, sorry, my dog has got into a very loud bone. So the oral tradition around the Sphinx, not the current Sphinx that's sculpted today, but the rock that the Sphinx, I'm taking this, Obi, stop it, I'm talking about the Sphinx. The rock that the Sphinx was carved from is on a extremely high energy point. And apparently, like, oral tradition of Egypt was that, oh my God.
I tried giving him another bone and it didn't work.
We'll take that away. That the thousands of people would come to the rock from like 50,000 years ago because this area was a place where you could access the netta, the energy, and you could access your nettas, and you could come for healing or for knowledge or for what it was. So that rock that the Sphinx is carved from is very special to the oral tradition of the indigenous people of Egypt. Not so much the shape of the Sphinx now, but the actual like location of it had some functional purpose for them and the nettas. And yeah, it's super interesting. And like now we don't have access to that kind of stuff. And I mean, maybe in some way, some people, when they say like meditation, or people can have, when you can meditate to a point where people have almost psychedelic experiences. Mm-hmm. There's like the conscious, the theory that everything in the universe is we are all one conscious. The full quote, I read the full quote the other day. It says, as above, so below. And it's like, as within, so without. And what was the last bit? As with the earth, so with the soul. So it's like the physical earth, it's also your soul, which is the non-physical part of you. Like, it's all connected. You're conscious and all the matter, we're all, and it sounds super hippie, but
it's no, but like when you look at like what so I like the universe a lot, and I used to watch a lot of documentaries about the universe because I'm a weirdo. And I also like the body, like the human body. But when you look at like our blood vessels, and you look at like leaves,
or in nature,
of like how the water travels in the veins of a leaf, it's the exact same.
Lung is a tree, and a tree makes the oxygen that you breathe in your lungs. It's
exactly. But
there's a design plan here.
We have the universe, and we have all these galaxies, and we look at like our brains from like a neurosurgeon's perspective, and how these neurons in the brain fire information towards each other, and it's just like the universe.
Yeah,
we are the universe, and we live in the universe as well. It's like it's all connected.
This is beautiful.
The other.
I love what you're saying here. This is beautiful because this connects the problem that I deal with from people who believe in God and don't. And what I mean is the answer is true for both positions.
Yeah.
If you ask Neil deGrasse Tyson, right, who doesn't believe in God, he says, no, you are the stars. We're made of them. Like we are all one in this thing. And if you ask someone who believes, they'll say, this is evidence of creator. Like they use this evidence to point that they have a creator. To someone who doesn't, like Neil deGrasse Tyson or someone like me who's a skeptic, it still makes the value and appreciation of what we live in, what this is, whatever this is that we live in, which we don't really know, no matter how much we want to touch it, like the blind men and the elephant, and explain what this existence is. It just makes it beautiful.
Can I give you a different perspective on like religion from like a Dutch person's perspective? Because we have a lot of people who are like agnostic in the world because they believe in something, but they don't know what. The Dutch went a step further. We developed xxxx. So most of the atheists in the Netherlands aren't actual atheists, but they're xxxists.
What's xxxix?
Iets is the Dutch word for something.
Oh, so like agnostic.
Like agnostic, but then a step further. So it's like something-ism.
Okay.
So that's a Dutch thing. We believe that there's something, but with the agnostic people, they even have their own societies and they've made it into a religion. The Dutch don't like that. 80% of the people in the Netherlands are atheists, xxxisms. Because we believe in something, we don't want to give it a name, we don't want to give it a word, we just want to be good people, good to ourselves, good to others, and make sure that we don't bring any harm.
Right.
That's it. That's xxxism.
Right.
But there is something more than we can see.
I like
because we breathe air, but we don't see air. So who's to say that air doesn't exist or it does?
It's like a form of deism.
To say that there's something or not.
You know what deism is? It's like it's the idea that there's something that's created the universe, but doesn't exactly influence anything, doesn't exactly get its hands involved, just sparks it off, starts evolution, and then kind of backs off and sort of does this.
That's a science project for God, technically.
But I wanted to mention something about what you said about the guy with the circles in the 1st century.
Yeah.
There was another genius named Archimedes. He was from Sicily, and he was one of the Carthaginians that was Hannibal was using him. It was like he was like the Einstein of the time period, the 300s BC, or no, 200s BC, and he was such a genius that the Romans ordered the troops, if they found him, do not kill him, bring him back. We need him. He's the most important human being on the planet. And so when they found one of the Roman soldiers wasn't paying attention, they found him in the sand drawing circles, like he was obsessed with circles, and the guy killed him. When they found the body and they saw the circles, they knew it was him because they knew he was obsessed with drawing circles, and that's how he died. But he was a genius. I thought that was interesting that you mentioned the guy in the 1st century was doing the same thing. There's probably something going on there. But
a remnant of Pythagoreanism or something.
Yeah, something like that.
But even then, circles, like look at the henge monuments that they used to create. They were circles.
Circles, yeah.
They were
circles. Also, actually, I realized I lied earlier when I said that the ancient builders were all precise with no inscriptions or no imagery. There is an argument that actually there was one symbol and one symbol alone that could have been from the previous version, and that is a circle. There's on some of the old huge granite box things, you can see where the Egyptians have come later and carved in beautiful hieroglyphs. But there's one which is like a circle, which is quite deep in there, and it's polished like the rest of the granite, because Egyptians didn't know how to polish granite, potentially. Well, they didn't anyway with their hieroglyphs. Like all the hieroglyphs are like rough on the stone, but the original stone box is like polished with some crazy. They can't work out how they did it.
The circle symbolism predates.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, I think
back.
circle is like the oldest symbol out of all the symbols that we can draw, and it's potentially the only thing that is inscribed on the super ancient structures in the world is this kind of like circle embossed thing.
Like with Newgrange and Noth in Ireland, I know that megalithic artwork, which is like from 3000 BCE, so it's like 5,000 years old. There's a lot of circles and circle symbolism, and I mean,
the first window was circular in Karen Tepe.
Like I'm still trying to.
Do you know that? Thoth in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it says that Thoth invents writing, which actually lines up with Hermes in Greece being the inventor of writing and all that stuff. But anyways, they said that Thoth hated it because he knew that it would make mankind dumber. And that Thoth was like, I invented this writing thing. I don't want to give it to them because if they get it, they're gonna forget things. They're gonna be
and Taoism as well. Don't want you to write it down. Like they don't like writing. Taoism was all about oral traditions and mental remembering and memorizing. And yeah, in Taoism, I like literally the beginning of the quote is like, if you have to write it down, then
it's same with the Celts.
Doesn't exist or something.
Same with the Celts. The Celts never had any writing system.
Yeah.
That's why we barely know anything about the Celts.
Yeah, they didn't write anything down.
They didn't write. They refused to create a writing system. But the Vikings and the people living in Ireland, they developed Ogham script, and that's like
there it is.
It's extremely Ogham script is like predating the Viking runes.
Yeah.
But no one knows where it came from or where it went, and it's not Celtic, and it was just there. It's super weird.
It is strange.
Interesting thing about this whole going into writing that John Knight Lunwell talks about, and I've done a few episodes with him, is that before they did writing, they danced and sang these rituals that they had as myths. And when writing came on the scene, there was this transition happening where if you go like to the oldest we know of in Africa, these tribes that still have this remnant, they're dancing in circles. By the way, the women are the circle maid. So the women are literally seated as a circle and the men go around them to impress them. What guy doesn't do that today? You know, she's there, lift that log, you got it, you know, like, and they're dancing and like whichever, they even have tribes like the whitest teeth, you know, in Africa, like whoever's the whitest teeth, things like that. But you dance around the women and try to impress them and do it in a ritual sense where it wasn't just dancing. Like today we go to a club to dance. It was everything in one.
I just pictured Derek trying to lift a log and acting
like
Johanna's
there. Hey, Johanna.
Hoist.
Yeah, no, but seriously, that transition is what I think that they lost. And this is what John Knight Lunwell was saying. Some of the texts in the Bible look like they're poetic and they're meant to be danced and sang as a ritual rather than just read out loud. Oh, okay. In Genesis chapter 1 at Sunday school.
The Psalms.
Jewish, they sing all of the Torah.
Yeah, the Psalms that are written are supposed to be for music. Like it even says in the Hebrew versions, like David the psalmist has the harp for this one. Pull out the harp for this one. Pull out the flute for this one. Like it tells you how to do it and everything.
Sorry, my dog's trying to say he steals his bed and then he tries to shag it. It's really embarrassing. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is gonna get graphic. I've got to get the dog off.
We may have learned that from the dogs. Actually. You
know what I thought about too is we were talking about how we get these caste systems over time, how like we become more like elitist and sort of violent and become like we lose our like ability to just be like, you know, kind to everybody and equality and all that stuff. And and I keep bringing up Gutsa Gibbon, but I thought about this and I had her on my channel. She told me something that was mind blowing about evolution, and that when you go back far enough before weapons were being made, there was matriarchal systems of different humanoids where the leading member of the society was the oldest grandmother. They were called grandmother societies, where the head honcho of the society was the oldest woman. For whatever reason, the women were the highest of the hierarchy. And it wasn't until weapons started being made where men sort of took over, because now we have a need for armies, a need for conquering, a need for war. And that was the most profitable thing, is to go and sack another country and take all their stuff. So when that happened, that's when patriarchy became a thing, because that was when men took over.
The interesting thing you're saying is, and it's going to sound common to us because women have babies all the time, right? Okay. But when you think about it, all the goddesses that were worshipped, Anat, Asherah, you name it, that goes back, God's wives and all that stuff. The fact in the ancient world that women could produce a life like that
was like,
whoa, they are a goddess, that you had divine powers that we don't have. You had magic that we didn't have. Yeah.
That's why it makes sense that the women would be in top of the hierarchy before.
They were on a pedestal. Yeah. Men treated them better. And then
I did a video on this. I did like a small video talking about the matriarchal system in ancient civilizations. It did not go down well with the, particularly the men of America. They did not like that. And I was like, hey, I didn't make it up. It's actually what the oral.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they were like, well, you should just go make a sandwich. I was like, well,
oh my.
They were like, well, and then they tried to say that the Egyptians, they were like, well, see, that's when the Egyptians like ended because women run them. I was like, no, the Egyptians ended actually when the men took over. So you actually just ate your own thing. But it was, you know, it's the same with like Judaism runs down the woman's line. You're only a Jew if you're born from a female Jew, like technically.
Yeah.
And
it's the same with the Egyptians, that when the first wife didn't produce a son, her daughter would marry the firstborn son of a lesser wife to keep the bloodline pure.
Because
it has to be.
And in Judaism, a male can be 100% Jewish. If he has a woman, if he has a wife who's not Jewish, the son is not considered to be a Jew. It
has to be from the mother.
Right. The mother has to be.
Which is kind of like, it's like echoes of what the ancient civilization and how, I mean, they just super respected the moms, really. Like, it is magic.
Yeah.
And
I mean, they're not making good sandwiches anyway. So why are we, you know?
I was like, mate, you don't want me to make you a sandwich. You want to be good.
I'm just teasing.
But it was just interesting how it did not go down well. It was extremely threatening. I was like, that's interesting that you find that threatening. And and the fact that Asherah and other female gods are like really erased from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that Mary Magdalene did, or you know, if she was preaching, that's swept away as well. And it was
exactly.
It's sad that if you can just try and look at it from a non-emotional place, like that's just what it was.
Demeter is the most important god in Greek mythology. Going the farther back you go, Demeter's nickname is Holy Dio, Holy God. Like, she was the Eleusinian mysteries revolved around her. She was the savior. She's the one who goes down and saves Persephone from Hades. She's the one that everybody is giving offerings to during the festivals. And like that was like the pinnacle of their worship. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now Zeus is the thing. But Demeter goes back farther than Zeus.
I just remembered as well recently one of like the top brain kind of experts in the world. He did a video I saw on Instagram, and he said it was really interesting after all these years studying the human brain from the different sexes. He goes, interestingly, the female brain, it's really wired for it's got a lot of leadership skills in the way that the female brain is wired. You're good in an emergency, you're good at like logistics, you're good at democracy, you're good at like planning and delivering orders. And the male brain is excellent at executing production, but you're physically bigger. You are supposed to be, you are the like it's really weird how we've kind of reversed it slightly in the in our culture. And
that's true even in my own marriage, though. You're 100% right. Like, I know for a fact physically I could kick someone's better than my wife. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid of her when she gets like, I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter how big and how bad. It's like, no, she's big and bad. Like, I'm not messing with her. And I'm not kidding. There's something like you're describing here where I can execute things like a militant monster. When it gets to stuff getting done, I can do it.
Yeah.
But she knows how to do things I can't even begin to comprehend. I can't even begin.
Yeah, it's interesting that this brain specialist, a male brain specialist, was saying this is the data that we've looked at from a scientific point of view. We're taking out the politics. We're taking out of all the gender politics. We're just looking at the facts here, and we're going, interestingly, women's brains are very good at wiring for this. They're very good with the communications. They're very good at, like, we have certain skills. Like when there's a problem, when we have emotional stuff, we as women, we immediately connect. we work it out, we cry it out, we know how to access we're allowed to access the full range of emotions to process stuff. Very diplomatic. A lot of the countries that are run by females, if you look at the economics in that country,
look at New Zealand.
They make some very good decisions.
New Zealand is doing really
like economically
good.
There's some stuff to support what he's saying, and then it does make sense. I'm like, so like men are literally you are the power force.
But also, so men don't like to ask for help. This is known. But a woman, me as a woman alone, I'm traveling alone at the moment in a different country. I speak a different language naturally. I step into a bar. The first time I was here in November, my first night in London, I had a massive panic attack. I had no idea what I was going through. And the next day I was going to meet you. I was not doing well. I stumbled into like a pub. And the first thing I saw was a waitress look me dead in the eye. And she said, "You're not okay. You come with me." She sat me down at a table, gave me 5 minutes to breathe. And she was like, "Okay, I just saw from your face, you're having a panic attack. I knew I needed to sit you down. You're good.
She had the skill.
I'm going to take care of you." But she already knew I needed help before I was even at the point of asking for it. Men don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
If that wasn't a female waitress, if that was a male waiter, that would have gone down completely different, because she knows that as a woman on an emotional level, you need to take care of other people, make sure that they're good.
Well,
men doesn't have that in that sense.
Well, to be fair, everyone's on a sliding scale, and there are some men who are amazing at delegating, and there are some men. So it is a sliding scale. But they were saying in general, we're kind of given a slightly different skill set that when they use together, it's like team.
But you know what I noticed about that is that in the ancient texts, the ancient scriptures, in Hebrew in the Bible, Hakma is the word for wisdom. It's a female word. In the Bible, the word wisdom is always used in the sense of female. It says, wisdom, her holy wisdom it's always her, it never is him.
The Holy Spirit.
Even in Greek mythology, Sophia was the goddess of wisdom. So wisdom was, and by the ancients, wisdom was always seen as a feminine thing.
Also, interestingly, everybody I know who's had a psychedelic experience and they've done ayahuasca or LSD or anything like that, when they meet the great conscience of the consciousness of the world and the earth and the universe, they always sort of recognize it as a female. I've heard it so many times now. They've gone, I just had a feeling that this thing was like feminine, that it was female. I don't know why, but like I met conscious and it was feminine. And I've had so many people say that, regardless of whatever gender they are, like that was just, it was kind of, it's like a repeated experience I've seen so many people have.
If I may just to throw this out there, I'm guessing here, maybe you might think I'm onto something or not, but if we were to try and approach this scientifically, like what you're describing here, we got rid of potential spirituality or trying to describe this in vague terms, okay? We're all born from a woman. Like our existence is threaded through a female, like everything.
It's even worse. Why do men have nipples when they don't have boobs?
Right.
Because they started.
Who says I don't have
everyone's
boobs?
female.
No. At like 6, 7, 8 weeks of age in your mom's womb is when your gender is actually coming out. So as a boy, around 6, 7 weeks of age, your gender starts to turn into the male gender. But we all started as female. That's why the reproduction system of the male and female are actually extremely similar. It's just that with the male, it's outwards, and with the female, it's inwards.
Wow.
But they just now, like a couple of years ago, they finally figured out what exactly the female reproduction system looked like, because they had no idea.
Yeah. It wasn't in a the Grey's Anatomy medical textbook in like 2005 or something. They still hadn't mapped the whole female version.
We know that because we all started as the same female gender, that's also probably why everything, when you go back far enough, like ancient civilizations, why they always worshipped the females. Because we all started as female.
Can we tell all those American men to go make themselves a sandwich at this point? I mean,
you could ask them to, like, if you really don't believe all of this, then please get rid of your nipples. You don't deserve them anymore.
Also, weirdly, there's some stuff I just love having this conversation with people, because so much of what we think about, you know, men and women and stuff, it's actually just really recent social stuff. Like the color blue and pink, that was reversed in the 20s. Before the 20s, the color blue was a little girl's color and the color pink was a little boy's color. And then a fashion house, I think in New York, I think Macy's, they did a catalog and they swapped it to be like, make this big fashion move. And then we just adopted it. So the reason why you have a white wedding dress, it's literally only traditional from 1850 or something, 1830, because Queen Victoria in England wore a white wedding dress, which was like, whoa, normally you'd wear a color, you'd wear a blue or a gold or a red or whatever. She wore a white one and then it just stuck. And now everybody just wears a white wedding dress all over the world, well, in like the Western culture, because of Queen Victoria. And I'm like, that's so weird that tradition, we kind of stick to it. Again,
why women give birth lying on their backs? Because it's all the reason because this one French king wanted to see the baby come out that way.
Yeah, he had a kink, and he wanted to he made all the his like wives. He made them give birth lying down, which actually is the not the best way at all.
Worst way possible.
You should give
use
birth.
Gravity.
You should be squatting and sitting because gravity will pull the baby out a lot quicker. Lying down is probably one of the most painful, and the baby's trying to come out this way rather than down. So, but hands and knees or squatting. Is like the best.
I know that. That's interesting.
Position. I know, it's like facts.
That's why so many babies are born during the car ride towards the hospital, because the woman is sitting and gravity is just making it come out instead of lying on her back.
It makes me, and this is gonna, I don't know why I'm even saying this. This is crazy. When did we start sitting to poop? Because it's much healthier to squat with your knees to your chest. When did that happen? You know,
I think it was a money thing. I think they were like, we're going to invent this seat, and it's going to be. We're like, we're going to have a bit like. But actually, they didn't realize that it was the harder way to poop, and it's probably not been great for colons for centuries. But high heels were originally for men. They were designed for men. They were a status thing. In like, look at pirates' shoes. Look at all of the men of the court in the 1700s. You wouldn't be seen dead at court without a full wig of hair, weave like down to here.
Dang, that's good.
You would have had high-heeled court shoes. Women wouldn't wear them. The men wore them because it was, again, like a status thing. And full face of makeup. The men wore, you'd powder your face, you'd rouge, you'd lipstick, you'd do a dot. Like,
look at George Washington. And then all these Americans are like, no blaspheme George Washington.
So like the manliest men had the most rouge. They had the biggest hair. They had the highest heels. And so it's only a really relatively recent thing that that women have kind of taken over the fashion and we've kind of nicked it. But really it was a men thing. And only recently, like whether you're a boy or you're a girl, all little kids wore dresses. And then it was a thing about 4 or 5 years old, you'd trouser your boy, and because they weren't a baby anymore. But dresses are the easiest thing to like change nappies and help kids pee and stuff and teach them how to pee. So like little boys wearing dresses, again, it's only a super recent thing that's become like a bit like, you can't wear that. I was like, why? It's a people wearing tunics and kilts, and
I was gonna say
the design of a dress wasn't to do with gender.
The warrior, look at the ancient warriors. They had these kilts. They're wearing basically a skirt. I mean, that's
exactly
what it was,
exactly. I mean, I remember when I was
like the Scots for this.
The kilts,
reason.
the
kilts, and like they're so manly.
They are,
and they have like a skirt on, and I'm like,
there's something about a man in a skirt. It's just brilliant. You're just like, you can see the legs
with the plate.
Oh, I got an image of a Roman warrior. So this is not even Scottish. This is just Roman.
But I just love it when anyone's trying to get in an argument with me about like cultural of stuff like that. I'm like, but do you know that the color is like so recent? It's less than 100 years, dude. Like, don't be married to that idea because it's gonna change.
Right. I have to add this right now. It's pretty.
You got a picture of that Roman warrior?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What a man.
Yeah.
Look at that dress.
Oh,
snap.
I'd rock
Yeah. You can't get better than a man's thigh. That fashion, they don't show the thighs off enough for me. So there we are. Look at that. Beautiful.
Yep.
I think the shield, caps it off. The
And
giant.
the shield. Oh, can you imagine, like, you need a pee? Like, mate, can you hold my shield? Sorry. I just really need a pee. Can you hold this, please? Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, again, I just love the idea of working out the first person who invented that fighting was way safer if you hid behind something. Being like, this is really useful.
Oh, this is like that meme I shared a while ago on Twitter. Like a Neanderthal and another Neanderthal that was gonna eat like a mushroom or something, and then he had like this sort of notepad and to see if he died or not.
Yeah.
The other guy eating the mushroom to know if it's safe or not.
Yeah, you eat it first, dude.
You eat it first. If you die, then we know. Okay, that's no eating. We learned that you died.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. Honestly,
Yeah, like
what happened with the psychedelics and stuff. I mean, but I thought it was just interesting. If I could, just one last thing I'd love to poke on that is we are all threaded in a woman, and it's also the mother that we've like, her voice, her existence is all we know. And I imagine that would be the most primitive in your brain thing that would be instilled. So if you are going back, assuming these psychedelics that you ingest take you down to the brain stem where your core existence is, where your primordial
ancient brain.
like where you are at your base, you're going to meet what is your base, and that would be your mother in a way. And this goes back to Gaia, the divine earth, and like it just makes you kind of wonder, like, lots of questions, lots of cool stuff to look into.
Do you know we're also, I think it only applies to girls, but we were also carried by our grandma.
Yeah. The eggs of a woman are developed while she is a baby.
She has all the eggs
as her mom.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So my mom had all her eggs already created while she was still being carried by my grandma. And unfortunately, I'm not going to give that. I'm not going to continue the line. I'm unable to have kids. That's all right. But my sisters have kids of their own. And my oldest sister has a daughter, and we know that she was already being carried by my mom back in the day.
Yeah, it's mad. So you like the egg that made me was in my grandma.
Yeah, it's super weird when you think about it. But that does for me explain why I have green eyes, because my grandma is the only other person in both my sides of the family with green eyes, and I have green eyes.
So it's come through your mother's line.
Yeah,
but it's madness. It is madness.
Yeah, it is.
Fascinating.
Female line. Actually, I found about female lines. I'll close with this. I did a DNA test, that 23andMe, and found out that I'm 0.2% North African.
Wow,
great.
Nice.
So
nice.
Egyptian roots here, probably. And it came from. I was like, maybe that's why. I love it. But so my roots.
Yeah.
But that ancestor, it's down the matriarchal side, so it means a woman left North Africa thousands of years ago, and she's my ancestor, and she traveled into Europe, and that's why I'm from there. But she came from North Africa.
I still want to do a 23andMe.
Do it. It's so interesting. It's so just to know.
I kept saying until I get an apartment. I just got an apartment, so I'm going to do.
Now you give your test.
Yeah, now I can.
There you go. Yeah. But I recommend doing it. It's so fascinating, and being like, I found other stuff as well.
Full test, right? Not just you have like the cheap one, and you have like.
No, I did the full thing. I did the health and the DNA and the.
As well.
Oh, wow.
But that was interesting that they could track that, and so that whole genealogy came down from one woman that left North Africa so many centuries ago.
But that does show, like, I just made a video on this a couple of weeks ago that so we have all these different people in the world, and we figured out that approximately 50,000 years ago there were 3 tribes in Africa. They all eventually spread, but we all are descendants from them. So they interbred with others around the globe. So they spread the line. But when you go back far enough, 50,000 years ago, we all come from those 3 tribes. There's no one on the planet who lives today.
It's not part of the tribe.
Who's not part of the tribe. So we're all one family.
From
Wakanda.
there's a video by that Robert Sepher guy who always has some out there conspiracy that he's trying to debunk everything on planet Earth. And he's saying, out of Africa debunked, right? In this video, it's like 15-minute video. I'm actually having Guts at Gibbon next week.
She told me the same thing that I sent her the same thing. I said, you have to debunk this video.
Well, I told her, will you come on with me? I'll play it. And she's going to debunk it and show that what you're saying is actually what she's saying is the facts.
Wow.
We can see it in the DNA. Like we do have ghost species in our DNA that we found. We don't know who they were. We don't know who these hominins were, these homogeneous people. We know they've existed because we can find them in our DNA, but we haven't found them in the fossil record yet. But we make so many discoveries at this point in time. It's only a matter of time before we find one or two of these ghost species and learn more about where we as a species came from. There's so much that there's still to uncover.
It's amazing. It's like going back. There's a theory that we are in the like the prototype of a computer game where before they make a game and release it, they just make a kind of waiting room computer game, which has a certain limitations, and that's where you can build all your prototypes and all the functions and stuff. And someone was like, I think that's what we're in that. And the previous hominids were like the previous prototypes of the game, but now we're in this one, and
the latest development,
the laws of physics, and there's nobody running the game. It's just the pre-game. There's no one playing it. We're just in this thing. I'm like, okay.
Or when people say that evolution isn't real because we stopped evolving, we never stopped evolving.
Oh, we've evolved.
White skin.
But
white skin is really recent. Blue eyes is a new mutation. Blonde hair, it's a new mutation. It didn't exist like 15,000 years ago. So we keep evolving, and eventually we will, as a species, diverge again. There will become a new branch in this evolutionary timeline where there will be a new species that's different from us, because eventually a mutation, just like in the past, will take over.
I also want to see that movie.
Me too. So let's write that movie.
Sapien 2.0.
Yeah.
The movie.
Planet of the Sapiens.
Right? Hey, you would act. You'd be the actor.
Planet of the Sapiens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got old Homo sapiens, like the old school Homo sapiens, just there being like, I will digitally fight you with my digital drones. But no. Hopefully we're going to come full circle to our ancestral sapiens, and we're going to start really plugging into the potential of our planet and our physics and stuff that would seem like improbable to our understanding of the quantum physics, but maybe there are certain things in the world that we could tap into, that we could access, that we could.
I'd love that.
Psychologically,
maybe we become telepathic
again. Do you know what I mean? Like we could, because I think there's
natural Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's the more that, but maybe we do have to do something like radically shift away from the journey of relying entirely.
Or they just give us chips inside our brain that we just have
automatic
Bluetooth.
That works. I'll do it.
I mean, either way,
we could become partial AI.
Either way, but
I think that's coming next.
But yeah, I think there's I don't know, there's so much to that we don't understand. We don't understand 96% of the ocean. We don't understand what dark matter is. We don't understand, but we just know it all relates together. And there's
we just know it's there.
We just know it's there.
Right.
No. Yeah. Interesting.
So
we know we're super old.
Right. Yeah. That's a fact. That is definitely, and some people still deny that too.
We're getting older. No, 100 scientific fact. 300,000 years at least.
Yeah. We've the oldest Homo sapiens fossils were found at Jebel Irut in Morocco, and they're 300,000 years old.
People will say those aren't real. Those are fake. They're fake fossils.
They're not fake.
No.
Anthropologists just have a little bit of a hard time with it because they look like other fossils in the record, but that also shows that these were probably among the oldest first Homo sapiens. Yes.
Right.
We don't expect it to go back another 100,000 years, maybe 20, maybe 30, 50 max, I feel.
Right.
I feel like 350,000 years ago really is the max of the emergence of Homo sapiens.
But there's 350,000 years, and they're saying that we only invented like writing and how to like live in a little community in the last 6,000. Sorry.
Wow. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that well, even if writing, let's say, was somewhat recent, communication obviously isn't.
Language is really old.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
that Neanderthals even had the same hyoid bone as us, so Neanderthals were able to communicate, they were able to speak, and Neanderthals emerged at least 400,000 years ago. So we know that language is at least that old. We haven't,
and we were sleeping with them,
but still.
We were mating with the Neanderthals, so they must have had deep voices. Hey, girl, come over here. You know what I mean? Like, it's gotta be.
Yeah, the Morgan Freeman of the ancient world. But yeah. But actually, I recently saw a video of Morgan Freeman on helium. Hilarious. Just Google that in your spare time. You'll thank me later. But also, there's other ways to communicate. Like, I'm learning sign language right now, and it's a completely visual communication system. No writing, no sounds. It's all just a visual way of communicating. And what's crazy is that I was signing to a guy who was about 20 foot on the other side of a room, and it was a room full of people, and we were having a conversation, and it was the first time I experienced that, and it was really weird because you're used to talking to somebody and having to be really close, and you get too far and you're like, I hear you, and this time we were just talking, and I was like, oh, this is like weird. I can understand you, and yeah, but so as long as you can see the person, you can communicate. Also, what's interesting is that we're used to hearing conversations as being quite private, because again, the further you go, you can't hear. I went to in the UK recently. There was a big rally for sign language to try and make sign language a recognized language. So thousands of people turned up to London, and everybody was signing, and it was really weird because I could also see, and if you understand sign language, I could see what people were saying. Like I could tap into everybody's conversations. I could be like, interesting, and yeah, it's just a different way of communicating. And
I'm just kidding. No.
Waiter in a restaurant, they go by the tables and they hear every conversation.
Yeah.
So like they can listen in every time. But with the sign language, it's like the same. You can sneakily listen.
I'm like, oh, this is like, it's quite. I mean, should I not? Is there a rule?
It's very private.
But yeah, language cannot necessarily be audio. They could have visual languages, audio languages, written languages. It's all just a way.
That is my final thing. I do have to go soon. I don't know why. Like, I love this so much that I got to say one more thing. Steven Pinker, who's like a scientific guy, who's a skeptic like me, where he's like, I don't really know, some of these ideas we have are maybe outdated. Nonetheless, they worked in our process of humans. But he had this point he brought up, and he wondered if the reason we believed in a God, that there was something that wasn't us that we call God, is the first time a man or a woman heard a voice in their own head talk. You know how we think and we can talk in our head? Can you imagine what is that thing, since it's not me, it's up here? And that concept was, this is something above me and that isn't me. Maybe this is the God. And
but then there are some people that don't have that inner
not everybody has an inner dialogue.
Visual thinker. And I sometimes talk to people who aren't.
Can you not do you not have an inner dialogue?
I have an inner dialogue, and I'm a visual thinker. So when people tell me something, I visualize while I have an inner dialogue visualizing that with me. Yeah. So when I read a book, it's like a movie for me. But I have a friend who does not have an inner dialogue, and they're not a visual thinker, and I just don't know how they exist.
I don't. This is a question. I'm wondering if that happened from the time we've been what do you call that? What I was saying, compartmentalized. I'm wondering if that was kind of part of the survival. Like, you needed to have that memory and that inner dialogue at some point. And now that we're starting to be able to compartmentalize things, maybe it's not necessary for some people who are being born today going, do I really need to be able to think this through and like have an inner voice and
your inner voice. Now I think about it, the time that I hear my inner voice the most is like the most crucial, like, oh no, don't touch that. Oh, you know, or like swearing,
survival.
or like it's a thing being like, don't touch that. Like I rarely hear my inner voice when I'm just like, this is a nice sandwich. Like it's normally something kind of where I'm talking to myself or being like, oh no. Like,
That's funny.
It's like the Jiminy Cricket, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Your little like conscience that talks to you. This is a bad idea, Johanna.
Don't do it.
Remember last time. Yeah.
Jordan Peterson loves to talk about that movie. It's like it's some deep psychology behind it. It's pretty interesting, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, that movie is pretty messed up. Like now that if you watch it again as an adult, it's quite a messed up movie with Jiminy. Like the naughty kids get taken to an island and turned into donkeys where they're gonna like be turned into glue. It's like smoking and stuff, and it's like like I was really scared I was gonna get turned into a donkey if I was bad.
When I was young, I hated that movie because it was way too scary and it just messed me.
Yeah,
so I watched it like once or twice, and after that, I just started crying every time
it's horrible.
was put on. And I just didn't want to watch it anymore. Man. And even as an adult, I don't watch the movie.
I mean, like you lie and your nose would get really big. I remember as a kid, I'd be like, "Did you do that? No."
Right.
I'm just checking.
Right?
Did you spill this? No. Really affected me.
Yeah. So do you guys have anything coming up that you want to promote while we're all closing out now?
Oh, I mean, I guess I can. I don't know if I can. Yeah. So recently I got involved with a really cool project. And I'll shout them out on here. There's a series of documentaries called BAM, Builders of the Ancient Mysteries. They are an amazing French filmmaking company, and they've gone to all the ancient sites in the world, and they're just collecting all the data, all the science, and they're making a series of documentaries that are really concise and really informative. But they had a problem because the voiceover, the translation wasn't very good. So I got in touch with them and said I would love to narrate your videos in English. And so I recently went to record the narration, and so that's going to be coming out in the next few weeks. So you'd be able to watch like the proper English version, because I think the videos basically, if you're new to the subject of ancient mysteries or ancient civilizations, or if you just want one concise thing to show your friends or introduce your family to, BAM, Builders of the Ancient Mysteries. It's a really good film, and I'm really proud of it. So that's coming out.
Yeah.
Hopefully on Amazon or somewhere. Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, I only have the Egypt tour with NEXT because I'm doing my Egypt tour.
Well, we're going on tour to Egypt.
We're going on tour, and then I'm staying in Egypt, and she's going back home, and then I have my tour from October 5th until October 16th. So go to
Speaking of October, speaking of October, me and Derek are going to Israel in October.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I really want to go.
For you guys, for your fans that are watching this, look out for us. We're going to Israel. We're doing a tour there. We're going to look for all the ancient sites. We're going to look for John the Baptist's tomb.
I want to go to Hani the Circle Jars
we're going to
as well.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, big stuff on the way.
Degrees. Amazing. Exactly. Look at us on tour.
Yeah, look at all that.
YouTubers on tour. Great.
Yes. Hey, I want to say thank you also for having both of you join and hanging out with us today.
No, this has been great. What a great Thursday night. But we got to go have some dinner now.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to go eat. It's 4 o'clock in New York, 4 p.m.
No, it's 9 p.m. here, so we've got to go and eat late dinner. Yeah. But thanks, gentlemen. It's been great.
Well, like I always say at the end, you have just attained true gnosis.